you said you were over all the need for these tremendous amount of beauty products. I think you said in your home you have 40 to 50 a hairspray and a gel and a lip liner and a lipstick and an eyeshadow and a gloss and at your point in life, you're just kind of like over having to like not only pick and choose these and purchase these and refill these, but to use them. Tell me a little bit about that since I'm in the beauty distribution world. Do you feel like you get inundated with that stuff?
Yeah, it's like I have this very weird love-hate with social media. Like there's been points where I've really gone off completely, like because I think as a woman specifically, you can feel extremely inundated with like, here's how you could make your life better. Here's how you could be a better mom. Here's how you could be skinnier, have better skin, better hair. Here's what you need to eat. Here's how you need to exercise. Like it can feel just like a constant barrage of somebody else telling you how to live. And again, what is the criteria of this person telling me how I should live? Like they just happen to have a lot of followers. And what we have learned is like your intellect, your just like those are not the posts that get the most attention.
For nearly 40 years, PIMS has worked behind the scenes of beauty and CPG. Along the way, we've gotten to know the people who make the industry run, the founders, the operators, the ones with the real playbook. This is the PIMS Influence, where they tell you how they actually do it. No fluff. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody, to the PIMS Influence. Today's guest, Michelle Freedberg. Michelle, welcome to the program.
I am beyond thrilled to be here, Mike.
Michelle and I have just been getting reacquainted over these last few weeks because this will be actually the second time I interviewed her at length because the first time was 20 plus years ago when she actually came to PIMS for a job and we hired her and we loved her. Can you believe it?
I do believe it, but it seems like a lifetime ago. Like it seems like a whole other world.
Michelle is a licensed social worker, mental health therapist now. And we were just saying before we started recording here that thank God for social media because I stumbled upon her. I don't know how the algorithm connected me, but it threw a podcast into my feed. And I was like, wait a second, what? And her used to be Michelle Kirsch back then. Now she's Michelle Friedberg. So it didn't immediately click. And then she started talking, and I'm like, oh my God. So I reached out to her, and of course, she responded right away. And then we started talking about the podcast world. Let's get into that. But first, let's start with you come out of school, you want to work
Mhm.
in, I would assume, PR or marketing.
PR, yeah. I was a publicity I guess I was really a PR major at school. Like I really did. That was my full major.
And back then, like PR, we were just talking about this on another episode. Back then, PR was like kind of funky and new. Like it was a merging of marketing and advertising, but nobody really knew what it was. And I had a PR minor, and I told people that they're like, "What does that even mean?" So, like, you end up
Yeah.
at PIMS. How did you springboard from what you wanted to do to what you ended up doing?
So when I took the job at PIMS, I think I was thought I was working in PR, which really I was not. But it was like I just wanted to be in the city. I wanted to be able to pay my rent. I wanted
You're
to,
22 years
like
old.
it was like get a job. And I think I was making $25,000 and I was very happy. And then I think a job opening happened in Scholastic Children's Books. I think that's where I went after I left you guys, and I was an assistant to a publicist. So I worked there for a little bit. And then I met my husband. So interestingly enough, took a completely different turn. He had a family business selling baby furniture. So I left Scholastic Children's Books and actually started to work for him. We opened up stores. I did their PR and corporate marketing. So like they had a lot of celebrity clients and I handled all that and I like redid our web, all that kind of crap. And so then I was working in his family business for like a bunch of years. But kind of somewhere, I don't remember how many years in, I was like, I can't do this forever. Like, I need something more. And then I decided to go back to graduate school before I had kids. So I went back to graduate school and then popped out my first kid like right after graduate school. But immediately started working. I worked for someone else's private practice and then just like slowly started my own practice. So even though I had kids, I was still doing the stuff for my husband's company, we still had stores and I was managing them and doing all the PR stuff, I was slowly building my own practice, which was 20 something years ago at this point.
It's funny too because I remember when you started with the stores and, that's sort of you go from journalism, PR to marketing to, you're an entrepreneur, right? And still doing the PR at time. And then I always felt like, and I think I told you this too, it sounds a little hokey, but it's true. But I always felt like you were very easy to talk to, and you always had like a really good group of friends, and that you always look. So, did you kind of know from an early age where you're like, you know what, my calling is something in that world, like talk with people to, how did that come about?
It's interesting. So I guess before I met you, yeah, in college, my dad passed away and I went to therapy for the first time. And my therapist, Carol, like changed my life. She really helped me grieve and she helped me make sense of a lot of dynamics in my family. And it was always sort of in the back of my mind. But at the time, I just, again, wanted to make money, wanted to live on my own. My mom wasn't going to put me through graduate school. And I guess there was a piece of me that just always felt like I wanted to do something more like giving back and more like people oriented. So, yeah, I think there always was that piece.
You get started with that. So, did you say you started with somebody else working in their practice?
Yeah. Like when you go to graduate school, like after you're done, you have to work for somebody else before you can have your own practice.
But the plan all along was to sort of branch out on your own.
Yeah. Which I love, because no, I was just gonna say, because I think being a mom, it gives you a ton of flexibility. Like, I always say to, like, young girls now who come to me for, like, mentoring or, sort of advice, I'm like, "It's a really good profession when you wanna be a mom because I have my own schedule. I wanna take off for the school play, I take off for the school play. I wanna go on the field trip, I take off for the field trip." Like, I just have a tremendous amount of flexibility, which I love, and I don't commute.
There's certainly a lot of perks. I'm positive there are a lot of tough times too, right? Like, so, back to, again with your entrepreneurship, this is sort of a form of that, right? Like you're venturing now at that point out on your own to do your own practice, which you always kind of planned on doing, but it's filled with pitfalls of its own, right? Like, so yeah, that's true. You get to set your own hours, and it's true you get to depend on yourself, but you're all by yourself, right? Like, so we talked earlier and you mentioned that your office is not in your home, so you have to deal with an office outside your home and getting that going and getting a group of people that trust you and to engage you in order to get that practice going. What are some of the I know a lot of people that watch this are in fact young men and young women that want to get into these fields, but like they want to hear like maybe what are some of the pitfalls that they're going to have to walk through, like you mentioned earlier, like you have to work in another practice before you're able to do your own, of course, be
Yeah.
licensed and whatnot. What are some of the other issues with having your own practice?
It's all on you, right? So you have to manage the business end of it and then also have the service end of it, right? You have to work on your clinical skills and keep up with your continuing education credits and make sure your license is the right way. Like no one is helping you with any of it, like the insurance and the this and the that. So, I think that part can be challenging when you're first starting out. And, obviously you're taking care of people. So you have to really make sure that you take on people that you are trained to take on, right? Like I don't take on people that I feel like are out of the scope of what my practice is set up for. Like if you need a higher level of care, I'm the first one to say like I'm not the right level of care for
And
you.
that's part of it too, right? Like realizing that and being able to be strong enough to say, like, you know, in your head, you're probably like, that there's somebody that's going to be better for you at this than I am. So let me turn you over to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you specialize in?
So when I started out, interestingly enough, from my husband's family business, which was baby furniture, really when I started out, I was dealing in the postpartum space. I connected with a psychiatrist who specialized in maternal mental health. So I was doing like perinatal mood disorders, postpartum depression. And that's really where I started. And that was really where I got a lot of training. But then slowly I morphed into just like women's mental health. So I only see women over 25 and then I see couples. So kind of just like your regular old moms who are struggling with parenting or anxiety or marital stuff, things like that.
One of the things I was dying to talk to you about too is because, like, we did our little pregame here, we were filling each other in on our lives. I realized that you are entering the stage that I'm leaving, right? And what do I mean by that? So I'm not gonna tell how people how old you are, but I'm about to be 60, 49, right? So she's entering the big 50. Um, I'm going into the big 60, and there is such a huge gap from 50 to 60. It's like on not no other that you're ready for, right? Like, because we talk about this with friends and family, you know, 20s was this and 30s was that and 40s, you worry about this. And there's some guy online that was talking about that too. He's like, in your 20s, you don't really worry about shit. You're worried about getting jobs and making out with girls and making some money and all that stuff. Then your 30s, it kind of sets in and you're looking for your life partner. Maybe you're getting married, you're buying a house for the first time, and maybe you're starting a family. 40s, all that sort of sets in. Your children are growing older, and there's a lot of life lessons to go on there. But I kind of wanted to pick your brain about this a little bit. So, your kids, you have 2 children, and one of them's college
Yep.
age, off this year's college, right?
Yeah, I have a 20-year-old. She's a sophomore in college. She goes to UC Santa Barbara, and then I have a sophomore in high school who's a boy.
So, what I remember from that, because I have 4 children, 2 of them are in their 30s now, and, one is, late 20s, and then I have a college age kid. But, there's a lot of focus on what should I do with my life and being able to work the children through with that, and should I go to school? And I guess my question is, at that stage, what's kind of the norm in the world today? Are parents bound to sort of parental advice to the point of almost deciding themselves where things like college is chosen, or a spouse is chosen, or dating, or like how does a woman in her 40s or people in their 30s, like, what do you hear commonly as a real big issue in parenting?
Yeah, I mean, I think our generation of parenting is much more involved than our parents were with us. Like, I don't remember my mom telling me what schools I should look at. I think she was like, "I'd like these brochures," and she got them for me, and I filled out the out like, it's very different. I think we are way too involved, so much more involved. I don't think we let our kids kind of fail and try and figure it out on their own. Like, sometimes I look back and I say to my mom, like, "Why did you let me quit my good job and, like, go off with this guy? I wasn't even engaged." She's like, "Oh, it was gonna be fine. I knew you guys were gonna." I'm like, "No, you didn't know shit. We were together for a year." Like, so, I mean, but there was freedom in that. And I think that's important. And now I'm like sort of going through it with my daughter because, like, she's out on the West Coast and I just hear rumblings of, West Coast life. And, my husband's like, zip your mouth. Like, you're not telling her where to live. You're not telling her what to do. And it's hard. But I do think like our generation of parents is sort of having to work on pulling back a little bit because I think we are way too involved in making choices for our kids.
You're younger than me, but we're kind of in that same world. Like, when I went to college, there was no internet to search, choices for, and there was no ChatGPT to tell me, what's the best role that I should look in a line of work to make the most money. In ChatGPT, you could put in, I want to make X amount. I want to work in Chicago. I want to do this, and it will give you not only the outline your life for you, but tell you who to reach out to. Like, we didn't have that, and I don't know if it's a positive or a negative. I'm gonna ask you for your take on that. In today's spin on, like, how people do things, like, we kind of, when I say we, I mean you and I and our generations, we kind of had to, like you said the word, you had a brochure. Like, if I told my kids I have a brochure, they'd be like, "What's a brochure?" Right? Like, they don't know,
It's
but
right.
that's how you did it. Like, I had a postcard from my college, they sent me going, "Why don't you apply? We'll mail you a 30-page booklet that you fill out longhand and mail it back to us, and we'll let you know in 6 to 8 weeks if you're in or not."
Right. In the
Yeah.
mail. Like, you'll just look and see an envelope and it'll tell you, and that's how you'll know.
Are we
Like,
doing ourselves a disservice?
I mean, now that we've had it both ways, I think yes. I mean, like, we're not gonna stop technology, and obviously there's so many good things, like, look, you're in where you are and I am where I am, and, like, we're having this conversation, and we couldn't do that, you know, 20 years ago, certainly, but I think that the whole AI thing is a little scary. Like, I think sometimes, like, I am so reliant on ChatGPT, and that freaks me out sometimes. Like, like, she seems so certain about things, and it's funny, I just had this conversation with my husband because it was the day that Artemis went up, and they were there or whatever, and we didn't know exactly where it took off from. So I said to her, like, "Where did Artemis launch from?" And she's like, "Artemis didn't launch." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And she was like totally wrong. And I was like, "You are missing the biggest news story." I went off on her. I was like, "You're missing the biggest news story in the world right now." And now I've trusted my entire life to you, and I feel completely like
It's so true.
flabbergasted.
You almost get to the point too where, and I see them doing this, like from everything from music to, their possessions like cars and stuff, they trust almost to this technology. They trust almost to a man, like every aspect of the feedback they get. We were talking about investing, and I was trying to explain to my older children about financial freedoms and stock market and that stuff. And I'm certainly no expert, but I was giving them feedback on how that works. And they were like eyes wide open, like almost not trusting me. And then they're like, actually, I went to ChatGPT and and I'm like, this machine, like they're trusting it verbatim no matter what, but, like, you bring up a good point, like, a lot of times with this AI, and we feel this at work too, like, not always 100% correct, so that's a part of this generation's learning aspect too, is being able to know where to apply it, where not.
Well, yeah. I mean, I find that in my world, like when I meet with a patient, they're like, "Well, I didn't have a session with you, so I asked ChatGPT what I should do about the fight I had with my mom." And I'm like, "Okay." And it's like, I've spent years building a relationship with you and context, but that answer that you got because you wanted immediate gratification, like sometimes just like does, you know, but I would say on the flip side, in starting the podcast, like we could not have done it without ChatGPT because every technical issue we have, if the camera's not working right, if we can't figure out the microphones, if we're not sure if our Instagram, we rely on, we call her, we call her Gloria. We rely on Gloria for everything.
It's
Everything.
incredible, like, even for this podcast, I sent, Michelle sort of our game questions that I'm gonna be using. I took every bit of information I could find about her, plus I added all the stuff in that I know about her, threw it into ChatGPT, and it was like, "I think she would be good answering these type of questions." Like, that's an amazing source.
Totally. And that's valuable. Like so I think for like nostalgia purposes and just like everyday life, what I think is better is what we had. But I think when it comes to progress and ease and like these kinds of things, I mean, I don't think you can beat the technology.
I wanted to talk about your podcast, but before we jump into that, I had a couple other questions that I just kinda wanna throw by you because I saw you mentioning it. I don't know if I saw it in a previous podcast or I read it online or something attached to you, but I didn't realize that something like, gender disappointment is something that happens in family planning, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, going back to my things, like, I always wanted to have a set of brothers. I didn't have a brother, so when we got married and my wife said to me, "How many kids do you think we should have?" And I said, "2, as long as they're brothers," and she wanted 10, and we were, like, hashing that out. My
Yeah.
first child was a daughter. And she
Yeah.
was like, I know," because I told her about the brother thing, and that's all I talked about, and I told everybody, because back then you could take a test, but it wasn't 100% sure of what it was gonna be, so I was like, "I'm sure it's gonna be a boy," and when it wasn't, I don't wanna use the term disappointed because my daughter is the ray of sunshine for this family, and we love her dearly,
I
but at the time, I was like, "Am I the only one that feels weird that I really wanted a boy?" Like, I don't wanna say this out loud, but it's common.
Definitely. Yeah. I think you're just talking about I did an article with Jackie Goldschneider. She was like one of the Real Housewives, but this was before she was a Real Housewife. She was a journalist and she interviewed me on this. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, especially dealing in the perinatal space, like when women are pregnant and they have a vision of what they thought or men, they thought their baby was going to be and sometimes it feels really hard and disappointing to not feel like you are gonna, have the family structure that you thought you were gonna have. Now, doesn't mean because you are a girl and you had a daughter that you're gonna be best friends, right? Like that doesn't always happen. Or you're gonna have two brothers, they could hate each other. So you don't know. It's what you hope. But, yeah,
It's so
I get
true,
it.
but it kinda made me feel good that was a thing, like, as I aged and as we had more children, of course, I ended up having the boys, but it became less of like, I used to go to sleep and wake up thinking about, like, "This has to happen," like, "What this is what I wanted, this is my dream, what happens if it doesn't happen?" Right? So, it was kinda nice to
Yeah.
read about that. Being a parent in my space now, right? Like, so you're still focused on, I'm assuming, college and where your younger one's going to be eventually going to college. Your older one's in college. Is she making the right choices? Is she meeting the right people? What's happening out there? Is she learning? Does she like all this is sort of what the focus that I've kind of shifted away from. And now my focus is more of, are you guys saving money for the house? Like, how's it going with your house hunting? Have you found your spouse? When are you going to propose? How's the wedding going to work? Am I paying for the wedding? Oh my God, who's going to have a baby first? When are you going to have them? How quick are you going to have them? Do you plan on having 5, 10? Like, it's a total different focus, but that nervousness never goes away. Do you
Never.
hear a lot of that too? Like,
Yeah.
because I remember my parents used to say to me all the time, like, you never graduate, you never run through the finish line. It's forever. And I feel like it's true.
It is it is true. I mean, and I think the saying "little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems" is very true. I mean, I think sometimes when I have patients now that have kids that are very young, let's say 3rd grade, and, their kid is being left out or doesn't make a baseball team, and they feel, like, panicked about that. Like, this is like, someone didn't play with them at lunch, and I get it. When you're in that moment in 3rd grade, you feel like complete crap. You wanna, like, move and you wanna call the school and right? And now, like, obviously looking back, those things seem to matter not at all, and you're gonna like, once you got through it, you're gonna get through it. Just like the whole college thing. Once your kids are done with college, you're like, "Eh, it wasn't that big of a deal where they went," even though it felt like it was gonna determine everything about their life.
I hate to use the word trust, but like there's a fair amount of trust in when you're parenting with your spouse, right? Like I trust without being there all the time that whatever my wife decides and thinks, I know her so well that I know we are common on that, right? We think alike on that. And I like to think that my children, because I've raised them and I think I've raised them right, they're gonna make these decisions that are best for them. But at the same time, I still feel that like you just said, like, I remember them being in 3rd grade and trying out for that team, and when they made it, I was the king of the world, and when they didn't make it, I was like, "I can't go to work today." You said people, like, wanna move and sell their house, and it's funny, but, like, I remember people talking about that, like, going, I can't be seen here anymore," and we're like, almost like, "What the fuck are you
Yeah.
talking about?"
It's totally true. I think that when you're in that phase, it feels terribly heavy and hard. And I think like you said, like now the worry just transfers from like, you know, one phase of life to like then your grandkids and you're like worrying about their happiness and success and are they get making the team and are they healthy and happy? Like it just doesn't stop. So I think the real moral of the story is like how do we sort of care about our loved ones, care about our children, their relationships, but also be able to create a little bit of space so that they can not, feel the pressure that we're putting on them. I mean, I think you said, what are the big parenting mistakes? I mean, I think sometimes it's letting our kids know. Like, I remember my son at one point was having like some friend drama, and my husband and I were terrible at this. Like, he'd come home and we'd be like, what are you doing tonight? Do you have any plans? Did anyone text? Where is everybody? No one texted you? And he'd be like, I'm going to my room. Like, can you stop asking me? And he was right. Like, we were so annoying because we were so anxious about his well-being and his like happiness that we just like could not contain our own anxiety. So I think like number one is, not showing them that you're scared for them. And I think number two is not being super critical. And number three is not being super
So
controlling.
true. Those analogies that you bring up are true life things. Like everybody's got some. And like last night, my youngest is 20, and he's like, "I want to have friends over for the Nick game." So my wife's very like, "Sure, I'll make snacks. It'll be great." And I'm very like, "Oh shit, this is going to be so bad. They're going to have
Mm,
drink, and they're going to trash wherever
right.
they're." So I'm giving him the Mike Ryan speech on my expectations, and he was like, "Can I ask you something? Has any of that ever happened?" And it never has.
True.
And I was like, "You know
Yeah.
what? I'm sorry, you're right." Like, it's just sort of b baked in, you think you have to react this way, but it doesn't have to be.
Yes, that is correct.
So you and your partner, life friend partner is a friend of yours, decide you're going to start this podcast, and it's called Before Boca, which is hysterical, and it is you and her share a common you're around the same age, and your family's around the same age, and I'm sure your children are friendly. But you want to tell stories about life in your age bracket, where you're headed, the assumption being that when you retire, you move down to Boca in Florida. But before Boca, these are the things you want to talk about. Tell me a little bit about this.
So Lisa is my co-host. She's a dear friend. She sort of came to me. She's like, "We need to do something." She's like, I need more. Like, I'm bored. We need to do something." And, we played around with so many different ideas. Like, should we do just like an Instagram thing? Should we do this? And then, of course, we picked the hardest thing there is, which is like, we could have just done like a stupid style Instagram page anonymously. No. So we picked this somehow. I don't know how. And I think even when we started, we weren't exactly sure what it was gonna be, but I think the conversation that all my friends were having was the same. It's like, this is a weird phase. Like, all of a sudden, there's all this, like, extra time. Even though none of us are empty nesters at this point, like, we all have kids that are either in college or high school, whatever, it still feels like they need you so much less. So the carpooling slows down, like, the trips to the zoo or the park, like there's none of that. So I think the conversation was like, how do we make this next chapter count? And how do we make it be something that is more intentional than just letting it unfold and like just waiting to move, or waiting to like start grandparenthood. We're still young, we're still vibrant, we still have our wits about us. Like, how do we use that? Right. So that's kind of how the idea came to be.
Watched a few episodes, but I think my favorite is your latest episode because I was telling her I watched it, and I think I watched it more than once, or at least a couple of the clips I watched more than once because it was you and your partner interviewing. I think it was her son, and the other one was his best friend.
Yeah, it was his best friend. Yeah.
As it was opening, I was like, okay, so these two women are going to kind of you know, verbally beat these kids over the head a little bit about life and what they should be learning, what they're not learning, and, a lot of how dare yous type. But the focus quickly changed to you guys asking questions about expectations of them. Like, what are your parents doing right? What are your parents doing wrong? What would you see a lot like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? What's the biggest mistakes parents made? And these guys who are, I don't know, what were they, 21 years old,
21.
the feedback they were giving, I was like taking notes on it a couple of times. I'm like, it was such good feedback, 2 very well-spoken young men, but, the insights they gave as retorts to your questions, I thought were very telling. Everything from, how to back off a little bit, and you 2 were really good about sort of I saw you guys scratching your head a couple times when they would give you sort of feedback that you didn't expect, and then allowing them to sort of you know, unveil all of this to you. It really turned out to be a really good episode. How do you come up with the ideas for? Because I know how I do it, but I'm curious, how do you do, like, your ideas for your episodes, and how did that one sort of rise up?
Yeah, that one was good because I do think, look, we are entering a very uncharted territory, right? Like, how much, yes, we're still paying for your life and subsidizing you because you're in college and whatever, but there is like a clear message being sent to us that like, back off, like, don't tell me every little thing to do, and I see that with my daughter completely. Like, I'm really trying to not weigh in on every little thing. How we come up with the episodes, I think, is just through our conversations, like what we feel like our friends are talking about all the time, what we're thinking about or what we're talking about, whether it's like, this is a big pivotal point in marriage where like there are a lot of divorces that start to happen in your 50s when the kids leave. So we did an episode on rekindling your marriage. We did an episode on like your friendships because those can change. So many of our friendships are based in the community of like we were sitting in the soccer bleachers together. And now if we're not sitting in the soccer bleachers together, like what does that mean? So, I mean, I think it's just what's relevant to what's happening for us. And like that part has been the easiest part, I think, coming up with like what should we talk about? That's like never hard.
It's funny because I was as you were just saying it, it was popping into my brain, but it's it's relevant is you forget sometimes. Like, I have been friends with these 3 guys since 6th grade, right? So
I remember you talking about
right,
them.
so we still go away every year as a group, we still we talk about the same 30 stories over and over, and we still laugh our
Mhm.
asses off. I think it's, like, just the
Yeah.
first time we've ever heard it. But, the guys that I met when I was 11 are now 60, and we've grown and changed, and part of being a friend is being able to, you know, understand the things that people are good and bad at, and sort of acclimating yourself around that if you choose to, right? Same goes for, your spouse. I met my wife when I was 15, and, we were dating all through high school, and now we're 60, right? So there have been times where things are like, you're like, "Wow, we're really this is different. We have to change this and this," uh, whether it's with the kids or our house or our jobs or whatever it is. But now the thing is, right, like, so she's retiring. One day I'm gonna retire soon. Are we selling our house or keeping our house? Or where are the kids gonna be? Are we moving to them? Like, the being able to talk these conversations through on a podcast like that, where you're coming through these
Mhm.
life lessons, but, like, listening to the 2 of you talk feels like I'm overhearing a conversation between 2 friends that I'm really interested in hearing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the goal.
I mean, for a podcast, I mean, you can't ask for anything better. Like, mine is very sort of interviewee. We have a lot of clients on here, or old friends like you. But that one is a little bit different because you have 2 people that have spent sort of a lifetime together developing your friendship. I'm sure everything you do is not perfect for her and vice versa, but you guys have learned to sort of work that together. And now to bring other aspects of it into the fold as you age, right? Like, you're gonna be an empty nester one day soon, and you're gonna have to go through that. And then you're gonna have to your husband's gonna be your first priority again, which it hasn't been for years, right? So that all happens too. It's a nice way to sort of unveil these life issues on a podcast that you can really sink your teeth into.
Yeah, and I think the simultaneous thing that went along with the podcast was, like, for us, it was learning something completely new at 50. Like, neither of us, and it's funny, when we started the podcast, so Lisa has 4 boys. Her second oldest had graduated high school and was taking a gap year, was taking time off to, like, explore his career. He's, like, a very, very talented videographer. So we assumed, like, he was gonna do all the tech stuff for us, like, the camera stuff, the filming, all the stuff. So the minute we decided to do this a week later, he's like, "I got a job in California. Goodbye." And we were like, "Wait, what?" And he, like, set up the tripod with the camera. He left us his camera very generously, like, told us how to turn it on, set up the lights, and was like, "Best of luck." And we were like, "But, like, where does this live? Do we just, like, record it on the camera, and then who do we send it to, and who's gonna" So, we learned so much, and if nothing else came from this whole experience, I would say learning all of that stuff has been, like, the reward. Like, if we never make a dime, if it never gets like, it doesn't even matter because that part has been, like, really the whole point.
One of the other cool things you do, and it was, really telling too, is at the end of the episode, and I forget the exact terminology you use, but you ask them, "What things would you like to see less of or more of?"
And what we're into and we're over.
That's it. What are you into? What are you over? So these 2, young men would say, like, "I'm really into the fact that this, and I'm really over the fact that my
Yeah.
parents," whatever it is, but it was really kinda cool, and you guys jumped in too. We gotta do something at the end of this episode, very similar, but a little bit different, but I was
Okay.
curious, as you were saying it, one of the things you said was, and this is gonna tie in with the PIMS thing a little bit as we come full circle. You said you were over all the need for these tremendous amount of beauty products. I think you said in your home you have 40 to 50, a hairspray and a gel and a lip liner and a lipstick and an eyeshadow and a gloss and at your point in life, you're just kinda, like, over having to, like, not only pick and choose these and purchase these and refill these, but to use them. Tell me a little bit about that since I'm in the beauty distribution world. Do you feel like you get inundated with that stuff?
Yeah, it's like I have this very weird love-hate with social media. Like, there's been points where I've really gone off completely. Like, I was off Facebook for months and I just went back on because we went on, or I'll go off Instagram for, like, a month or 2 at a time, because I think as a woman specifically, you can feel extremely inundated with, like, here's how you could make your life better. Here's how you could be a better mom. Here's how you could be skinnier, have better skin, better hair. Here's what you need to eat. Here's how you need to exercise. Like, it can feel just like a constant barrage of somebody else telling you how to live. And again, what is the criteria of this person telling me how I should live? Like, they just happen to have a lot of followers. And what we have learned is, like, your intellect, your just like those are not the posts that get the
Yeah.
most attention. Like, we did a post recently on that show Off Campus. Did
I
you
didn't
watch
see
the
that,
show?
no.
Okay, so it was like a romance college age hockey romance, whatever. And it was like very popular amongst the younger generation, but certainly like the midlife women like took a fancy. And so my partner put up a post. It was like me driving, and she put like mean things my husband said to me this weekend. And it was like, no, you can't rename the dog Garrett Graham, which was the star of the show. No, you're not a puck bunny, or like something like, no, you're not in your hockey era, you're in your menopause era. Like it was something like that, which of course he said none of these things, and it was so stupid. And I'm like, all right, put it up. Let's see. To date, we've had like probably more than 500,000 views on this
It's
stupid
unbelievable. That's
freaking
crazy.
like, and people commenting and right, oh, he's so rude, you should leave him. I'm like, doesn't even know this is going on. Like, you know, right? Like, do you think this is real? So it's like I realize from the beauty perspective, like it really makes me realize that like these influencers or these, you know, it's just like they get a lot of eyeballs for some reason for something that they did, and now they're a hair care expert or a skincare expert, or so I think like that excess is a bit much.
If you were interviewing me and you asked me what I'm kind of off of, like, to tie in with that. So, my a 60-year-old man, somehow I've become a subscriber to just about every living thing that can be sent to my house so I don't have to go out and shop, right? I have Harry's for razors, and shaving cream. I have Stitch Fix for my clothing and shoes and belts and everything I could ever want on that. I have Dr. Squatch for my soap and my shampoos. And the other day, my wife was like, "Do you ever, like, buy something? You just got in 40 more bars of soap, like, to add to the 27 you haven't used yet in the shelf." Like, how much like, somehow I just bought into that hook, line, and sinker, probably because somebody who I thought was cool or I appreciated what they were saying were talking to me or my heart, and I was like, I gotta do Dr. Squatch too, like, that Stitch Fix really is something. I gotta get involved in that, like, that unfolded.
Right, and I will get things in the mail now. I'm like, "Did I order this?" Like, but I don't realize that I
Yeah,
subscribe to
yeah.
it. So now I have to figure out how to log back in to unsubscribe. I don't even know, like, when I did that, you know what I mean? So it's just like it's a whole thing. Like, the excess of how much instead of just going to the drugstore and picking up the body lotion I need, you know what I mean? So and it's funny because my husband's totally not on social media at all. So he lives like he's almost in 1982. Like for him, he's like, "Oh, I need soap. Like, can you get it for me at the market?" Like, "Oh, okay." Like, you know what I
It's
mean?
kinda
Like,
refreshing
it's
though to
like,
have like, my wife's not on it either, but it's like having a spouse that and she doesn't know the first thing about Facebook or podcasts, right? Like, I tell her I do this podcast, I think she watched 1 of my 67 episodes. Isn't it kinda refreshing?
yes, it is. I mean, he'll watch YouTube shorts, which I guess is like his own, but the difference with that is it's not like you're following your friends or you're just like seeing whatever random like he's into cars or into whatever, like he's seeing those kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly never buying anything off of YouTube.
So funny. Alright, so what we do at the end of the episode is I'm going to give you rapid fire questions. These are all I sort of based them on parenting because I did tell you we were gonna talk about my parenting questions. So, if they're all this or that, so, like, it's gonna say, "Prefer this or do you prefer that?" The whole idea is you don't really think, you just throw your answer out there. I think a lot of these kinda tie in nicely to what we've been talking about. Michelle Kirsch Friedberg, are you ready?
I'm
Alright.
ready
Texting your kids or seeing them in person?
seeing him in person.
Problem solver or being in a sounding board?
Sounding board, even though I like to be a problem solver.
Little kids or teenagers?
I'll take teenagers right now.
School drop-offs or college move-in days? We didn't talk about that. Now, what I meant by that,
Ugh.
which was harder? The first school drop-off where you kinda, like, left them at the door and looked through the glass, or college move-in day?
College move-in day.
Family vacation or date night?
I don't know. I'm gonna say date night because I think even though I love family vacations, I think I'm not supposed to give explanations. I'll say date night. I don't know.
Strict rules or flexible boundaries?
Flexible boundaries.
Helping with homework or helping with life decisions?
Helping with life decisions. I never really help my kids with homework.
Parenting by instinct or parenting by research?
Instinct.
I do it by instinct too, and oftentimes I second guess myself because I'm like, "Was that the right thing to like?" I might even ChatGPT it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I had a patient say to me recently, like, "I have all these books sitting on my nightstand that I haven't read, that I know if I read, I'd be a better parent." And I'm like, "What do you think your kids need?" And she's like, "I think they just need my presence." I'm like, "Right, you don't need to read a book about that. Like, just be present."
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes it's much more obvious, and we don't need to, like, listen to how everyone else did it. We can just figure it out ourselves.
2 more here. Teaching independence or providing protection?
Independence.
What was tougher, the first day of kindergarten or the last day of high school?
Last day of high school.
Do you think, like, there's people that you saw, like, that were part of your friend group all through high school, whether it was at games or recitals or
True.
whatever, and then when they
Yeah.
went over and got the diploma, you kinda waved to them and you're like, "Never gonna see them again."
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you mean from when I was in high school or when my
Your
kids were in high
kids.
school? Yeah, I mean, I find that my son plays ice hockey, so I find that every year because the teams switch up so often, and I grow like, even with you guys, like, I grow major attachments. Like, if I like somebody and I'm seeing them on a regular like, I grow major attachments, but then all of a sudden, you're, like, enemies, you're on other teams, you're playing against each other, and I'm like, "I thought we were best friends." Like, what happened?
We had this
Right?
couple that brought their pa we were, one of the boys was on a baseball team. Couple we never saw except for every baseball game. We sat right next to them. We were best friends, always talked about getting together, although we all kinda knew it would never sort of be accomplished. They also brought their parents. I think it was her parents, very cool people, and the 6 of us would watch games, and this team was together for years. So for, like, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, every weekend, traveling here and there, because now you don't just play in town, you have to travel all over the country. And then the last game came, and we had a little dinner and a banquet, and we're like, "Alright, see you later." And then we got in the car, we're like, "We're never going to see them again." And we haven't. It's weird. It is
Weird.
weird.
It is weird. I mean, but I do think, like, even just thinking back to, like, an old job, right? Like, people play a role in your life, and that doesn't go away because you don't see them or
Yeah.
talk to them all the time. You know, to have your like, to have PIMS be my first job was incredible. It was a great first experience. Like, we had fun. Like, I never, like, dreaded going to work so I think doesn't matter how far you are from the path that you were on, like, you can still hold those, like, memories and they're good. Doesn't matter if you're not, like, constantly in touch because, like, we only have so much time in the day.
Social media that we talked about when we opened will come in handy, like, I can find them on it, sort of tag them on it, whatever
Right.
site I'm on.
Correct. Yeah, I think, like, finding everybody is
The
great.
same with this, like, we're not gonna be strangers anymore. We sort of never saw each other for a while, but now I have an excuse to sort of reach back. I'm gonna be able to watch your podcast, which I every new episode comes directly to me now. It's called Before Boca. People can find you on what site? How can they go?
On YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, Pandora, like, kinda wherever you watch your
Doing podcasts, I will tell you, I watch a lot of them. Most of them are kinda ho-hum. This one's not. So definitely check this one
Thank
out for
you.
sure.
Yeah, it's so g I can't believe you're doing this, like, this is so fun, and you have the perfect personality for this, like,
You're
this
the best.
is, like when you retire from PIMS, you could just, like, take this on as your
And you'll
next pursuit.
forever now be not only are you, an alumni of PIMS, but you're an alumni of the PIMS Influence podcast, and now forever embedded in our website where they can go in and see your episode that we're unfolding right now. It's gonna be great. How does somebody get in touch with you if they wanna talk to you a little bit more about your practice and maybe joining you?
If they wanna talk to me about my practice, my website is womenswellnessbergenco.org. I know that's a mouthful. If they wanna check out the podcast, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Before Boca. I think on Instagram it's before_Boca, but you'll find us. And yeah, that's it.
Michelle Freedberg, this has been wonderful. You're great. Thank you so